the Doghouse, hosted by Bulldog Bob Brown. And boy, do I have a guest for you today. Matter of fact, I got two guests today. You know, tomorrow night's the big night. You know, it's in Killarney, Manitoba. We start off there. We've got two tremendous matches. Sudden Impact, Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, just back from Mexico and Japan. They're going to be meeting Jerry Morrow, the WFWA heavyweight wrestling champion, and the former wrestling champion himself, the Natural. And then, of course, the big showdown, Chi-Chi Cruz versus Bulldog Bob Brown. But let's get right into it. You know, Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, I'm going to go to you now. What would it be like when you get up tomorrow morning and you look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, we got Jerry Morrow and we got the Natural in Killarney, Manitoba?
Well, you know, Bob Brown, when you get up in the morning, it's just like every other day, right? You get out of bed and you do your thing. But as everyone knows, the daytime is a fine time, but the nighttime is the right time. And tomorrow night in Killarney, we're going to be facing two very tough individuals. The Natural, he's making a name for himself. He's an ex-champion, of course. And Jerry Morrow, I don't have to say anything more about him. And we're going to step in that ring with those boys, and we're going to do our best to defeat them because, you know, they're tough. But I think we've got a little bit more experience and a little bit more tougher ourselves. We've been around a little bit more now, and I think we can do it.
What about you, Lance Storm?
Well, they're two great single athletes, but I don't know how they're going to work as a team. Chris and I have been a team practically our whole career, and I think that's where we're going to come out on top. You know, I'm not belittling them. They're both really great single athletes, but I don't know if they can work in a team, and I think that's where Chris and I are going to come out on top.
Well, let me remind you one more thing. We know your trip was successful in Mexico. We know your trip was successful in Japan. But let me remind you two young guys that Mexico and Japan is nothing compared to Canada and the United States when it comes to wrestling. You know that Jerry Morrow, and I, by the way, talked to him this morning, and the Natural, I can tell you this, you guys, that they're out to get you, and I'll tell you the truth, I'm on their side.
Well, Bob, you know, that doesn't surprise me. They're out to get us, that's fine. You know, they've been following us. I've faced the Natural many times all across since last year when I first came into the territory, and Jerry Morrow too. And I'm telling you, they're tough boys. Both of them. They know their business. They know what they're doing. They know how to use their fists inside of that ring. But like Lance was saying, we're a team. We've gotten a little bit more closer and closer every single time we step into that ring. We're getting better every time, and we're getting more experience every time. And tomorrow night, we're going to put that experience to use. And I think Jerry Morrow and the Natural are going to be in for a little bit of a surprise because they're the king dogs around here. They're the big fish in the little pond around here. But we're coming swimming through just like a shark, baby.
Well, one last thing before we go to our next guest. What would it take on behalf of you two guys to defeat Natural and Jerry Morrow tomorrow night?
It's going to take a lot of teamwork. It's going to take a lot of talking. It's going to take a lot of down deep toughness and determination. And I think we're bubbling over with determination, Daddy-O.
Well, wrestling fans, that's Chris Jericho and Lance Storm. I can tell you this much. They're in for a big battle starting tomorrow night. Now, without any hesitation, let's bring in one of their opponents. You know, I talked to Jerry Morrow this morning, but we got the Natural himself, the WFWA former Canadian heavyweight wrestling champion. Come on in, Natural.
Well, it's nice to see that everyone stands up to accord me the proper respect that I deserve. Well, you know, Bob, thank you for having me on the show, and I'm very pleased to be out here with a couple of guys who I consider to be the #1 tag team, the hottest tag team going anywhere in the world today. And I'm talking about Sudden Impact. Jericho, you're looking more like Miss Kitty every day. Easy, easy. I was just going to say, Jericho, that you remind a lot of people of Shawn Michaels, who's a great athlete. And you, of course, second-generation athlete yourself, spectacular wrestler. Lance Storm, Canada's version of Scott Steiner, the master of the suplex. You two are like a couple of acrobats in the ring, you know. You see them do their somersault suplexes and their shooting star presses, their flips, their cartwheels. They're like a couple of acrobats from the circus, like a flying Walendas maybe. Well, gentlemen, you're not in the ring against Pompero El Flippo and all that inferior competition that you fought on the TV taping. You're a couple of hot dogs. And what I think, you want to be a couple of acrobats, try being acrobats with Jerry Morrow, the Canadian heavyweight champion, and myself. And you're going to find out that it's going to be like working without a net. One mistake, and it's 1, 2, 3.
Well, I can tell you one thing, wrestling fans out there, starting tomorrow night, I've been around for 20 years, but I'll tell you, if there ever was going to be an explosion, you talk about the sudden impact, Chris Jericho, Lance Storm against Jerry Morrow and the Natural. What can I tell you? And if that's not enough, the big battle, Chi-Chi Cruz versus Bulldog Bob Brown.
Hey, let me tell you one thing, Bob Brown. Just let me interrupt you like you interrupt me so many times. We're going to be watching out for Chi-Chi Cruz. We're going to be watching his back because we know what you two bums did to Cheech, and he's a good friend of both of ours, and we're going to be there guarding his back. And Natural, you're into acting. We'll get ready for Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3.
Well, I can tell you what, I'll guarantee you, he won't forget it for a long time. Well, all I can tell you is this, Chi-Chi Cruz, you got your hands full. I want you to go home. I want you to prepare for the tour, because I'll tell you what, when the tour is over, I want you to come back on your hands and knees and tell Uncle Bob, well, you're the better man. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. Just walked away. I guess I got a beat already.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot something. I didn't... Oh.
And I'll guarantee you, he won't forget it for a long time. I'll get him tomorrow night. I'll see you next week here at the Doghouse, same time, same place.